They say love doesn't always knock loud. Sometimes it just slips in and stays. I'm Alex LeMan. These stories, they're about that kind of love, tender, tangled, a little messy, but always real. So settle in and let your heart listen. Chapter 1. The Boy on the Curb. Tires shrieked against the steaming asphalt of Beale Avenue as a delivery van swerved to miss a stray dog. The sudden jolt rattled Malik Thomas's nerves even harder. He sat hunched at the edge of the sidewalk in Darlington, Georgia, clutching his backpack like a life preserver while tears slipped silently down his cheeks. In his trembling palm lay a torn envelope. Empty now, save for his mother's neat handwriting that once wrapped 60 crisp dollars. Each passing pedestrian glanced, then hurried on. Dusk in Darlington was no time to stop for strangers, not with hurricane clouds smothering the sunset and the street lamps coughing themselves awake. A gust carried the heavy scent of fried catfish across the avenue, followed by the soft scrape of sandals. Miss Geraldine Carter, proprietor of Geraldine's Soul Pot, paused mid-step when she spotted the boy. The gold bangles on her wrist chimed, a sound Malik would later recall like church bells, yet in that moment he heard only the roar of his own heartbeat. "You bleeding, baby?" she asked, voice low and smoky, from a lifetime of blues records and late-night prayers. Malik shook his head. "No, ma'am." He tried to stand, but the weight of shame pinned him. "I lost it, the money for our rent. Mama said if I messed up again." Words dissolved in his throat. He could already imagine his mother's tired eyes hardening when she heard the news, the landlord's fist pounding the thin apartment wall. Miss Geraldine knelt, ignoring the oily grit that stained her apron. "How much?" 60. She whistled, soft and sad. That was a full day's take on her best afternoons. More now that peaches were out of season and folks spent less on sides. Still, she reached into her apron pocket, fingers brushing the photograph of her late grandson Therese. Gone 2 summers, but never from her mind. Therese loved the trumpet, just like Malik loved his snare drum. Both boys talked big about Carnegie Hall, even while their world sat on cinder blocks. "Stand up, child," she said. Malik obeyed, though his knees trembled. "Look at me." He met her eyes, deep brown, wells of stubborn kindness, and something inside him steadied. "I'm Geraldine. I cook for half this block. You hungry?" He swallowed. "Yes, but Mama needs that trip paid. Band's leaving next Friday. If I don't hand in the fee tomorrow, Coach'll cut me." Geraldine's gaze drifted up the street, where a city code enforcement van idled, 2 officers checking clipboards. They were new on this route, but rumors said they planned to sweep unlicensed vendors by week's end. Her stall, 3 milk crates, a propane burner, and a weather-beaten sign wouldn't last a minute. The thought tightened her chest. Yet, when she looked back at Malik, the worry eased. $60, she repeated, as though tasting the number. She untied the faded coffee tin from her belt, rattled the coins, then peeled off 3 $20 bills. Every dollar she'd earned since dawn. "Take it." Malik staggered. "Ma'am, I can't." "You can and you will. But promise me 2 things. First, you march on that bus like you own the world and play that drum until the sky cracks. Second," her hand rested on his shoulder, "don't forget the folks who see you when nobody else bothers to look." Lightning flickered on the horizon, painting her face in brief silver. Malik nodded, eyes burning hotter than his cheeks. "I swear, Miss Geraldine, one day I'll pay you back." She smiled, the kind that lifted years from her spine. "Child, just stay good. That's payment enough." A rumble of thunder rolled, and the code officers began crossing the street toward her stall, clipboards flashing in the streetlight. Geraldine rose, dusting her knees. You better run now. Rain's coming and grown folks got battles to fight." Malik tucked the bills deep inside his sock, slung his backpack, and sprinted, the drumsticks inside clacking like castanets with each stride. Halfway down the block, he spun around. Geraldine waved, but the officers were already talking, gesturing at her burner, pointing at the faded permit taped to the crate. Malik's stomach twisted. He sensed trouble but couldn't help. Instead, he committed her silhouette to memory, the proud set of her shoulders against a bruised sky, her apron flapping like a tired flag, her bangles catching the first raindrops. Then the storm broke, swallowing him in warm Georgia rain as he ran for home, clutching 60 borrowed dollars and a promise that would echo through every beat of his future. Chapter 2. Everything Falls Down. Geraldine woke before dawn, the memory of the boy's tear-streaked face clinging to her like a half-forgotten hymn. A humid blush hovered over Darlington as mist curled between the shotgun houses, and cicadas tuned their wings in the pecan trees. She hummed an old Sam Cooke tune while rolling her burner onto the sidewalk. The song had once belonged to Walter, the man who danced her through sweaty summers and heartbreak winters before the heart attack stole him away. Some mornings she still felt his palm at the small of her back, steadying her when grief buckled her knees. Sunlight cracked open, turning the asphalt gold, and the first city bus hissed past. Geraldine arranged her spice jars like choir rows: cayenne, paprika, dried thyme. She closed her eyes and whispered a blessing over the day, unaware that across town 2 code enforcement officers skimmed a list of non-compliant vendors, her name underlined in red. By 8 a.m., her fryer sizzled, luring office clerks and factory hands. Ezra Dupree, the flower seller next door, stopped to trade banter the way he always did, soft jokes hidden behind a shy smile. Geraldine liked the way his hands were gentle with petals and rough with crates, but she never let the thought travel far. Romance was a luxury she stored on a high shelf, safe and unreachable. At 9:30, the white van arrived without sirens, without warning. 2 men in neon vests stepped out, eyes flat as marbles. One read from a clipboard, while the other snapped photos of her stall. "Ma'am, this structure is unlicensed and must be removed immediately." Geraldine's spatula froze mid-flip. Grease popped like angry bees. "Sir, I've cooked on this corner 15 years. I pay my taxes and my health fee." "The ordinance changed last month," he replied, voice thin as printer paper. "Compliance window closed Friday." She felt the ground tilt, yet she kept her tone calm. Walter always said dignity was a woman's last coat in the storm. "Give me 2 days. I'll file whatever form y'all need." "Orders are clear," he said, and motioned to the second officer who grabbed a crowbar. Metal groaned as they pried her sign free. Ezra rushed forward, lilies dropping from his arms. "Hold on, brothers. Let's talk sense," he pleaded, but they brushed him aside. Geraldine's fryer skidded, sending hot oil across the pavement. The smell of ruined catfish drifted over the crowd that had begun to gather. Phones rose, recording, yet no one crossed the invisible line between witness and ally. In seconds, her world lay in splintered wood and scattered seasonings. The officers loaded pieces onto the van, shutting the doors without looking back. Thunder rumbled from a charcoal sky, mirroring the tremor in her chest. Ezra knelt beside her, palms bleeding from lifted debris. "Let me drive you home," he offered. She almost said yes, drawn to the raw kindness in his eyes, but shook her head. "Thank you, baby, but I need a minute with what's left of my pride." Rain began as she trudged the 12 blocks to her duplex. Each drop carried the sting of humiliation, yet beneath it flowed a strange calm, like the hush in a sanctuary after the pastor declares the benediction. She remembered Malik's promise, bright as stained glass, and clutched it to her heart. When she turned onto Magnolia Street, the rain eased, revealing her landlord, Vernon Knox, standing on the porch with a yellow envelope. He held it out the way a surgeon hands over a scalpel, steady, clinical. "Miss Carter, you shorted rent again. Bank wants me current before they approve my refinance. 48 hours to vacate." She stared at the envelope, lips parted but soundless. Vernon's eyes flickered, as if regret threatened to surface. Yet the moment passed. He retreated inside, door clicking shut like a verdict. Geraldine's knees buckled onto the porch steps. Streetlights flickered on, haloing her in weak orange. Cars splashed through puddles, lovers laughed under shared umbrellas, and the world kept spinning, indifferent. She drew a long breath, tasting wet asphalt and fried fish ghosts, then lifted her gaze. Somewhere beyond the clouds, Malik marched toward a future she helped fund. Somewhere beyond memory, Walter's steady hand still braced her spine. And maybe, just maybe, Ezra's gentle smile waited to blossom into something more than neighborly concern. Geraldine pressed trembling fingers together and prayed, not for riches, not even for rescue, but for the faith to believe that a broken today could birth a miracle tomorrow. The night answered with distant thunder, rolling slow and low like the promise of a song not yet sung. Chapter 3. A House with No Name. Geraldine left Magnolia Street before sunrise, carrying 2 trash bags and a cardboard box that smelled faintly of paprika. The air in Darlington shimmered with the promise of another blistering day, but she felt cold inside. With every step, her eviction notice rustled in her pocket, an unwelcome metronome to the prayer she whispered beneath her breath. She walked past shuttered storefronts, past Ezra's flower stand, empty now, yet perfumed by fallen petals, and turned onto Elm Street, where the First Hope Missionary Church waited like an old friend who never judged. Pastor Josiah Owens unlocked the side door just as she arrived. His salt and pepper beard caught the peachy glow that bled through the stained glass windows. One look at her swollen eyes told him everything. He guided her to a pew, and the silence between them felt softer than words. "I'm not here for charity," she said at last, voice thin. "Just a corner where I can breathe." "Charity?" he answered. "Sister Geraldine, I've watched you feed this town's hungry souls for years. Today, let the flock feed you." She tried to protest, but fatigue draped across her shoulders like a wet quilt. Pastor Owens slipped into the sacristy and returned with sweet tea and a slice of pound cake, still warm from some deacon's wife. Sugar steadied her shaking hands. Yet, what truly settled her heart was the hush of the sanctuary, wood creaking like an old choir, dust motes swirling in stained glass halos, the faint echo of last Sunday's hymns. Pastor Owens sat beside her. "Do you remember Velma Washington?" he asked. "Widow, with the laugh that filled the fellowship hall?" Geraldine nodded. Velma had once slipped extra peach cobbler into Geraldine's to-go plate after Walter's funeral. "She moved to Detroit last month to be near her grandbabies," the pastor continued. "Left her bungalow to the church for whatever need arose." He reached into his coat and produced a single brass key. "It's paid up for the year. Utilities, taxes, everything. If you want it, the place is yours by nightfall." Geraldine stared at the key. Awe wrestled with pride, and pride lost. Tears blurred the sanctuary lights until they looked like floating candles. She pressed the cool metal to her forehead. "Why does God keep loving me bigger than I can repay?" Pastor Owen smiled. "Because he invests in interest, not balance sheets." By mid-morning, Ezra appeared, flowers in hand, claiming he only came to water the church roses. Geraldine knew better. Worry flickered behind his grin. When she told him about the house, relief bloomed across his face like the lilies he carried. He offered his pickup and 2 strong arms. She accepted, heart stuttering at the gentle brush of his fingers when he lifted her box. They drove south, tires humming over cracked asphalt. Pine trees lined the roadside, tall enough to hide 1,000 secrets. The bungalow stood at the end of a gravel lane, pale blue paint peeling in lazy curls, almost shy. Yet the porch swing swayed in the breeze as if already welcoming her. Inside, sunlight spilled across hardwood floors scarred by decades of footsteps. A dust-sheeted piano waited in the front room. Geraldine lifted the sheet and played a hesitant chord. The note rang honest, neither sharp nor flat, just right. She imagined Sunday evenings with Ezra humming bass to her faltering alto. Imagined Malik's future trumpet solos filling every corner. The thought startled her. Why did the boy's promise feel so near, as if destiny had turned the same dusty key? In the kitchen, she opened cabinets. Mismatched mugs, a jar of marbles, a forgotten tin of cinnamon. A widow's memories, waiting for new hands. Her chest tightened, grief and gratitude braided together. Ezra pushed open the back door, revealing a yard wild with honeysuckle. "You could plant tomatoes here," he said. "Sell your plates again." She laughed, a sound rusty but genuine. "If the city lets me." "Let me talk to Councilman Banks," he offered. "I buy his wife flowers every anniversary. She owes me a favor." Their eyes locked, and something unspoken passed between them. An invitation, fragile as a moth's wing yet impossible to ignore. Geraldine looked away first, pulse tapping at her throat. She wasn't sure if it was too late for new love or exactly the right hour. Afternoon shadows stretched long when they finished unloading. Ezra set the final box beside the piano, then lingered in the doorway, hat in hand. "If night feels heavy, call me," he said. "Even strong women need a steady voice sometimes." She almost reached for him, almost confessed that loneliness howled loudest after sunset, but the words tangled in caution. Instead, she nodded, clutching her apron like armor. "Thank you, Ezra, for everything." When his truck rumbled away, silence settled. Geraldine stood in the empty living room, barefoot on cool wood, and closed her eyes. She felt the house breathe, timid but hopeful, like a stray animal deciding whether to trust. She whispered, "We'll name each other tomorrow," then opened every window wide, letting dusk sweep through. Outside, cicadas struck up their night hymn, and for the first time since the friar fell, Geraldine swayed to their rhythm, believing that broken things could still keep perfect time. Chapter 4. Malik's father and the storm clouds stacked over Darlington the way overdue bills crowded Darius Thomas's kitchen table, dark and heavy and threatening to split. He paced the cracked linoleum, boots leaving nervous scuffs, while Rochelle tried to coax the rusted coffee pot into one more miracle. Steam hissed, matching the tension between them. "Rent's late again," she said, eyes rimmed red from double shifts at County General. "And now the car's coughing smoke." "I know," Darius answered, voice weighed down like wet cotton. He loved her still, loved the freckles on her shoulders, loved how she whispered scripture when thunderstorms popped. But love did not fix blown head gaskets or past due notices. Malik sat at the table, drumming a pencil on his band trip receipt. He cleared his throat. "Mama, Daddy, we need to find the lady who helped me. I promised her." Rochelle's brittle anger softened. "Baby, we'll thank her, but first we need food on this table." Rain began as a shy patter, then grew bold, slamming the roof with furious drumming. The power flickered. Rochelle gasped when it did, stormlight revealing the hollows beneath her eyes. Darius felt a twist of guilt. He should have protected her from fear, from fatigue, from everything. A gust rattled the door. Darius grabbed his coat. "I'll check the lines, make sure the breaker box is dry." It was half-truth. He also needed air before shame drowned him. Outside, the wind smelled of magnolia and ozone, wild and unsettling. He trudged toward Dean's Corner Mart, neon sign buzzing like an angry hornet against the gloom. Inside, fluorescent lights cast a headache glow over racks of instant noodles and scratch-off lottery tickets. A weather alert blared from the dusty radio. Tornado watch until midnight. Dean, built like a linebacker gone to seed, leaned on the counter. "Storm's a beast, brother. You stocking up?" "Just bread and milk," Darius said, then spotted the bright orange poster. "Georgia Million Jackpot. Drawing tonight." The number looked like a misprint, 50 million. He checked his wallet. Exactly $5 remained, money Rochelle expected to stretch into 2 days of lunches. A thought slid in, reckless as lightning. What if $5 rewrote their tomorrow? He hesitated, sweat beading despite the air conditioning. Walter, his own late father, once said gamblers chase hope the way moths chase porchlight. Most get burned, but some slip through. Darius bought one ticket, signed the back, and tucked it inside his Bible, the same pocket where he kept Rochelle's wedding photo. Guilt punched him, but so did a pulse of daring he hadn't felt since high school ball. He hurried home, rain whipping sideways. An ambulance wailed somewhere beyond the pines, and thunder cracked like a starting gun. Rochelle met him at the door, hair damp, fear and relief warring in her face. "Power's out. I thought the roof might lift." He cupped her cheeks, surprise flickering at his own boldness. "I'm here. We'll ride this storm together." They lit candles, and shadows danced on plaster walls. Malik curled on the couch, counting the seconds between lightning and thunder the way kids count sheep. Rochelle laid her head on Darius's shoulder for the first time in months. Exhaustion melting into the warmth of remembered affection. He wanted to confess the ticket, but the words tangled. Hope felt too fragile to name aloud. Morning arrived shy and gentle, as if ashamed of last night's violence. Sunbeams poked through broken clouds, turning wet streets into mirrors. The radio, finally humming again, announced that a single winning ticket had been sold at Dean's Corner Mart. Darius felt the room tilt. He fumbled for his Bible, hands shaking so badly the pages fluttered like startled birds. The numbers matched, perfectly. A laugh erupted from deep in his chest, half joy, half sob. Rochelle stared, confusion sliding into wonder. "Baby, you okay?" He held out the ticket. "We're not just okay, we're delivered." Tears welled in her eyes, then spilled, mixing with laughter. Malik jumped up, hugging them both. The receipt from his band trip crumpling between their bodies like a fragile bridge that had somehow held. Outside, storm debris littered the yards, fallen limbs, shattered glass, and yet morning smelled of fresh earth and wild promises. Darius stepped onto the porch. Ticket clutched like a covenant. Wind whispered through the pecan trees, almost a lullaby, almost a prophecy. Every storm runs out of rain, but some storms leave rainbows made of dollar signs and second chances. He closed his eyes and vowed that the first check he wrote would find the stranger who saved his boy, no matter how far he had to search. For the first time in years, tomorrow looked bright enough to stare at without blinking. Chapter 5. A Chance on the Sidewalk. Savannah's riverfront market breathed Saturday music. trumpets busking near the fountains, gulls crying over shrimp boats, vendors hawking honey and hot sauce beneath striped canopies. Malik Thomas, 32, moved through the crowd like a man chasing a ghost. His billion-dollar sneakers made no sound on the cobblestones, yet his heart pounded louder than the brass band behind him. Every June, he hunted farmers' stalls from Charleston to Macon, hoping fate would repay a debt he still felt in his marrow. Today, the heat shimmered off the river. Jasmine tangled with the smell of boiled peanuts, and Malik told himself this search was another dead end, until he smelled catfish. It was faint, coaxed from an iron skillet behind a red umbrella where a sign read, "Geraldine's Good Time Pies." Malik stopped short. The woman at the table wore a straw hat and a sunflower apron. Silver streaked her braids, but her hands moved with a rhythm he recognized. Flip, season, bless, serve. Something inside him broke free. Geraldine Carter felt eyes on her and glanced up. Tall man, tailored linen, eyes wide as if seeing a miracle in her grease-spattered world. She offered a polite smile, the kind reserved for tourists. "Can I fix you a plate, baby?" "Miss Geraldine?" His voice trembled over the name. "Yes, sir. That's me." She tilted her head. "You look like you swallowed lightning." He laughed, half-sob. "You once gave $60 to a crying boy on Beale Avenue. Do you remember?" Her breath caught. The skillet hissed, forgotten. Memories unfurled. Rain, code officers, a promise shining in a child's eyes. She steadied herself on the table. "Lord, have mercy." "Malik?" The crowd blurred. He stepped forward, tears blinking away the man he had become to reveal the boy he never stopped being. They embraced, grease and cologne mingling. Shoppers slowed, sensing a story blooming between strangers. "I tried to find you," Malik whispered. "Every lead was dust." "Life scattered me too," Geraldine answered, voice thick. "But look at you, all grown and dressed like Sunday prayer." Their reunion drew Ezra Dupree from behind stacked peonies. He wiped his hands on his jeans, studying Malik's suit with cautious curiosity. Geraldine introduced them, pride softening the lines around her eyes. "Ezra, this is the child I told you about, the one God sent me that stormy day." Ezra reached out, grip firm. "You're the blessing she's been waiting on." Malik turned back to Geraldine. "I owe you more than thanks. You saved my family." He unlocked his phone, showing a photo of his parents in front of a new community arts center. "We built this in Darlington last year, music lessons free for any kid who wants them. It started with that $60. Tears welled. Geraldine touched the screen, then her own heart. "I prayed your seed would root deep." Thunder muttered inland, rolling over the city like distant drums, a reminder that storms were never far. Malik glanced at the darkening sky, then at Geraldine's flimsy umbrella. "Let me pack your stand into my van before the rain ruins tomorrow's profit." She hesitated, pride flickering, but Ezra nodded. "Let the brother help. We can reopen after the storm." As they loaded crates, Malik's driver idled nearby, watching the billionaire heft flour tins with bare hands. Geraldine studied him. Success hadn't stolen his humility. When the final box slid into the van, the first raindrops fell, warm as forgiveness. Inside the cab, Malik handed her an embossed envelope. "This is the deed to a storefront on Broughton Street. Renovated kitchen, paid in full. Run your pies there or lease it out and rest those knees." Geraldine opened it, lips shaking. "Child, that's too heavy a gift. You carried me when your own world was falling. Please, let me carry you into this next season." Lightning flickered, illuminating Ezra's gentle smile in the rearview mirror. Geraldine felt her past, present, and possible future converge like rivers meeting the sea. She closed the envelope, placed it over her heart, and whispered, "Then let the season begin." Beyond the windshield the storm unleashed, drumming a cadence Malik recognized from a childhood curb, a rhythm of loss turning into promise. He started the engine, steering them through rain toward a tomorrow all three of them had only dared to imagine. Chapter 6. The woman behind the blessing night settled over Broughton Street like velvet trimmed with brass, each lamp a glowing bead along the avenue. Malik's driver eased to the curb in front of the refurbished storefront, its windows still papered to hide the surprise within. A discreet banner read, "Grand Tasting Tonight. Invite only." Geraldine stepped out first, smoothing the sunflower print dress Ezra had bought her, "to match the pies," he'd said, cheeks coloring darker than his orchids. The air smelled of river mist and fresh paint. It quivered with the hush that falls just before a choir's first note. Inside, candles flickered on every table, their reflections dancing across tin ceiling tiles restored to Art Deco shine. Malik's parents greeted her at the door, Rochelle elegant in silk, Darius beaming with a humility money had never erased. Geraldine saw in their eyes the same wonder she felt, as if all of them were children tiptoeing through a dream too holy to disturb. At 7 sharp, Malik clinked a glass. His voice carried the confidence of boardrooms, yet cracked with boyish awe. "Friends, this is Good Time Cafe. By morning, it will serve soul food free to anyone who can't pay, sustained by music scholarships and pastry profits. But first, we honor the seed that started the harvest." He turned to Geraldine. A spotlight slid across polished floorboards until it crowned her silver braids. Heat rushed to her cheeks. She wished the candles would dim, yet some daring part of her stood straight, as if Walter's steady hand still guided her spine. 15 years ago, Malik continued, I lost more than money. I almost lost faith. This woman lifted me, then vanished into her own storm. Tonight, we put her name where it has always belonged. He tugged a silk cord. The paper over the largest window floated down like a curtain drop. Gold lettering gleamed in the glass. Geraldine's Blessing House. Beneath it, in smaller script, where one act of grace feeds 1,000 tomorrows. Gasps rose, then applause, then something deeper. A collective exhale that left many eyes wet. Geraldine felt the room tilt as memories flooded. The hiss of a fallen friar, the smell of police-issue neon vests, the cold porch step after eviction. She pressed a hand to her chest. Beneath her palm, her heart drummed a new rhythm, equal parts gratitude and disbelief. Malik stepped aside, revealing a mahogany plaque. The cafe is yours, Miss Geraldine. Run it, lease it, or give it away. My only request, keep loving hungry people the way you loved one scared boy. Her voice wavered. Child, I can't bake enough pies to match this kindness. You already paid in full, he replied. Tears threatened, but Ezra appeared at her elbow, warm and solid. Looks like we better start planting tomatoes after all, he whispered, and the promise in his smile steadied her. She remembered the lonely high shelf where she'd stored romance, and realized it now stood within reach. The jazz trio struck up A Change Is Gonna Come, saxophone swirling through cinnamon and coffee aromas, as servers passed miniature catfish sliders, Geraldine's recipe, taught that afternoon in a kitchen gleaming with state-of-the-art ovens. Rochelle led a toast. Darius broke down halfway through, voice cracking on the word miracle. Strangers held strangers as if long-time kin. Near closing, when only candle stubs remained, a young reporter approached Geraldine with a notebook. "Ma'am," Savannah loves origin stories. Tell us, who taught you to give like that?" Geraldine glanced at Malik, laughing with his parents, at Ezra, arranging leftover flowers into vases, at the street where night's velvet now glittered like a gown. "Honey," she said, eyes shining, "storms teach better than any classroom. When you've lost everything once, you learn the weight and the worth of a blessing." Outside, the river rolled under moonlight, carrying distant echoes of thunder. But within Geraldine's blessing house, the only storm was applause when Malik climbed the small stage and invited her to join him for a gospel reprise. She sang one trembling verse, Ezra's baritone sliding beneath her like a quilt, and the audience rose as one. In that moment, Geraldine understood. The house had found its name, and she had found hers again, keeper of grace, woman behind the blessing, proof that a single act of mercy could outlive every tempest and light a city brighter than brass lamps against the dark. Chapter 7. Storm over Blessing House. The day began too still. Savannah's air usually carried a rhythm. Seagulls crying, vendors bantering, children laughing by the fountain in a right square. But that morning, Geraldine Carter stood in front of Blessing House and felt it. The pause before thunder. She smoothed the front of her lemon-yellow blouse, but the fabric clung to her skin with anxious sweat. The sky above Broughton Street was cloudless, yet something darker was gathering. Ezra Dupree watched her from the kitchen doorway, wiping his hands on a towel. "You feel that?" he asked, voice low. Geraldine nodded. "Storm's coming, not the kind that brings rain." The door chimed, 3 sharp rings, and in walked Clayton Rockwell, his 2 city enforcement officers in matching suits flanking him like wolves in church shoes. Rockwell removed his sunglasses slowly, letting his eyes adjust to the warm lighting of the cafe. His gaze swept the room like a blade. "You must be Miss Carter," he said, his tone buttered but cold. "I'm here to serve official notice from the Savannah Redevelopment Authority." He handed her a crisp envelope. Geraldine opened it, her hand steady though her heart pounded. The document inside might as well have been fire. Violation of zoning. Illegal occupancy over ages. Unauthorized community events. At the bottom, underlined twice. Closure effective in 48 hours, pending review. Rockwell smiled just slightly. Downtown's changing. This block's got eyes on it. Serious money, serious future. These old buildings, these folk kitchens, can't hold it back forever. Geraldine's throat dried. She knew what this was. She'd seen the same pattern when her first home was swept into the East Side projects. Now they were aiming to gentrify Grace. Malik burst through the back door, phone in hand, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. "You targeting this cafe is a mistake, Rockwell," he said, stepping between Geraldine and the officers. "I've got permits, partnerships, and lawyers on speed dial." Rockwell chuckled. "I'm not afraid of boys with money. You might own the building, but you don't control the street." He turned to Geraldine. "Enjoy your little farewell weekend." As the suits left, Malik's fists clenched. They're trying to erase this place. They're scared of what it means. Real community, not curated profit. Geraldine didn't speak. Her mind raced not with fear, but with the memory of that old tomato stall crushed under boots, the landlord slamming the gate on her cries, and Agatha's little voice whispering, "God will help us." She looked at Malik, his jaw tight, his chest rising and falling too fast. This place don't scare them, baby. It reminds them what they ain't got. Later, in the storeroom, she sat with her head in her hands. Ezra brought her tea, his presence a steady weight beside her. "Let me call my cousin at the zoning office," he offered. "There's always some corner left unguarded." She looked at him then, not with fear, but something closer to longing. Ezra, if they close us down again, I don't think I can rebuild a third time. He reached across, gently touched her wrist. You won't have to, not alone, and not this time. There was silence between them, a silence filled with what hadn't been said for years. I thought, maybe, if the storm passes, he began, we could talk about something that's not tomatoes or building permits. Geraldine raised an eyebrow, but her voice softened. You finally gonna ask me what you've been rehearsing for 5 years? Ezra laughed, nervous and boyish. Maybe, but only after we keep this place standing. Suddenly, the front door burst open again. This time, not a city official, but Rochelle Thomas, Malik's mother, in full Sunday hat and heels, her presence a force unto itself. Y'all better not be waiting to pray, she snapped, because I done brought 20 choir mamas, 4 reporters, and 2 bishops. We got work to do. Within the hour, the cafe buzzed like a revolution. Banners were hung, youth from the music center arrived with cameras, lawyers began organizing permit folders, and the scent of collard greens filled the street like holy smoke. Ezra and Geraldine moved in quiet rhythm behind the counter, their hands occasionally brushing, and each time it happened, neither pulled away. But the final twist came just before closing, when a young woman in a dark hoodie approached Malik at the cafe's side entrance. Her eyes were hidden behind sunglasses, but her voice was familiar. Malik Thomas, she said, you don't remember me, but you need to know something about Rockwell. He's not just targeting the cafe, he's targeting you. He froze. Who are you? She pulled off her glasses. Malik's eyes widened. Danielle Price. I was in the foster home with you. Rockwell? That's my uncle. He's never forgiven your family for winning that lottery. He's the reason your dad's audit got reopened last year. Malik's world tilted. You're saying this is personal? She nodded. And he's about to make it public unless you walk away from Geraldine's. He has documents, interviews, even fake testimony ready to drop. Malik's breath caught. Why are you telling me this now? Because you were the only one who ever treated me like I mattered, she said, and I owe you more than silence. He returned inside, face pale, mind spinning. Geraldine saw the storm behind his eyes and touched his arm. Tell me. He hesitated. This ain't just about us anymore, Mama G. It's war now. But she smiled, calm and radiant. Then we fight, because love that saves one soul deserves to save a city too. The storm was no longer coming. It was already here. But so were they. And sometimes mercy didn't run from thunder. It danced beneath it, arms wide open, aprons still on, and music playing loud enough to shake heaven itself. Chapter 8. When Grace Takes Root. Saturday dawn painted the river copper, but Rockwell's inbox exploded before coffee. Overnight, the reporter's live stream had gone viral. Blessing House Defense trended from Baton Rouge to Brooklyn. Church choirs posted videos pledging to ride buses in solidarity, and the city hotline was jammed with calls demanding the citation be torn up. Geraldine arrived early, expecting protesters with signs. Instead, she found volunteers, hundreds, scrubbing sidewalks, planting window boxes, hanging strings of prayer flags. Malik's tech team set up portable Wi-Fi and speakers. Ezra unloaded crates of tomatoes, his smile blooming with sunrise. Children chalked Bible verses beside rap lyrics, blending old faith with new rhythm. At noon, the inspectors returned, flanked by uniformed police. Rockwell pushed through the crowd, eyes widening at the transformation. Blessing House glowed like a beacon, live saxophone riffing over sizzling skillets. He tried to speak into a bullhorn, but Rochelle's youth choir drowned him with a thunderous, harmonized, "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." the bass line rattling his clipboard. Malik stepped onto a milk crate, microphone in hand. "Inspector Rockwell, your citation claims this house endangers the district. Look around. Does courage endanger Savannah or strengthen it?" Cheers erupted. Cameras flashed. Rockwell raised a trembling finger toward Geraldine. "Your occupancy exceeds—" "Then cite my name instead," Malik interrupted. "I purchased the adjacent building this morning. We knocked down the inner wall at 8 a.m. Blessing House now spans 2 addresses, doubling legal capacity." Rockwell's mouth opened, closed. Papers rustled, but offered no weapon. City Hall's counsel, watching livestream, texted, "Withdraw immediately." He felt the phone vibrate like judgment. A hush fell as Geraldine stepped forward, holding a single plate, a slice of sweet potato pie crowned with whipped cream. "Mr. Rockwell," she said gently, "storms make us hungry. Sit a spell. Taste what kindness flavors like." The inspector stared at the pie, at the smiling crowd, at the cameras broadcasting his next move. Sweat beaded. Something in her eyes, an invitation without shame, unraveled him. He accepted the plate. Fork met filling, cinnamon and brown sugar melting into holy warmth. Applause roared as tension cracked like summer ice. Reporters swarmed. Rockwell, swallowing humility with each bite, managed a thin smile. Inspection passed. Music exploded. Horns, tambourines, clapping. Kids formed a conga line around cops who eventually laughed and joined in. Ezra grabbed Geraldine's hands, spinning her beneath bunting as if porch step loneliness had never owned her bones. Over his shoulder, she saw Walter's photo, newly framed on the cafe wall. She felt his blessing in the sway of the dance. Dusk draped the street gold as Malik's parents raised a banner between lampposts, where one act of grace feeds 1,000 tomorrows, now amended with and stops 1,000,000 storms. Later, when crowds dispersed and candles guttered low, Geraldine locked the door, turning to find Ezra still there. Bouquet of pale moonflowers this time. He offered silent promise. She answered by taking his arm. Together they stepped onto Broughton Street, the night warm, jasmine thick. Behind them, Blessing House stood firm, its roots newly deepened, its windows shining like soulful eyes that had seen winds rage yet never close. And above, a shy sliver of moon glimmered through clearing clouds, reminder that storms obey a higher whisper, and that mercy, once planted, grows into shelter wide enough for every heart willing to believe.